Hey, good evening, everyone. We're super excited to have you all tonight. We got an awesome crowd here. It's hard to believe we're going on 3 weeks of doing these webinars, 3 straight weeks. We typically do a lot of in-person seminars, and that we love seeing people in person, but the webinars is the world we live in right now. And tonight we're going to talk to you about the importance of tax-free money in a post-COVID-19 world. We talked a lot about last week about taxes. We're going to talk a lot about taxes tonight, give you some solutions because tax rates will go up in the future, no doubt about it. We've got Richard Berry. He's got his Chartered Financial Consultant designation, his Certification in Long-Term Care designation, his Charter Life Underwriter designation. He's been in the business over 30 years. Over 30 years. We've got 3,000 amazing clients. We have over $500 million under our firm's management. My name is Reid Mathews. I am blessed to be Mr. Berry's son-in-law and married his beautiful, beautiful daughter over 3 years ago. And tonight we want to start off by, let me read a couple of these verses for y'all because these times are things we've never seen. And we just want to start off by that we're praying for everyone. John 14:27, peace is what I leave with you. It is my own peace I give you. The world will not give you peace, as I'm personally seeing the last few weeks, but the Lord will, and it says so in John 14:27. Timothy 1:7, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. The Lord gives us the spirit of power, love, and of a sound mind. In Deuteronomy 31:6, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. So we've got an awesome crowd tonight. I want to share, or Mr. Berry's going to start sharing a few things.
Just want to welcome everybody tonight. Appreciate you taking time out of your crazy schedule. You know, probably you got a little bit more time to tune in to the webinar. Listen, a few comments I want to make is that I know we're in the midst of a pretty dark storm, and we're seeing things that I've never seen in my 55 years. And it just seems like there's a lot of things that are out of control that we can't control, especially the circumstances in regard to COVID-19. Here's what I really believe, you know, the things that we can control is our attitude about what's going on. We get to choose whether we want to be positive or negative, and that we see the blessings that we all still have. And let me just assure you, living in the greatest nation in the world, we're all still blessed beyond measure. The other thing that I think that this country really needs, you know, Reid and I are going to talk about tax-free money, but I really felt compelled that this country needs prayer. So what I want to do tonight is I want to start out by praying, and then we'll dive into all this stuff about tax-free money. So if everybody would bow their head, and I would love to pray. Dear God, Lord, I just want to come to you now, God, acknowledging who you are. You are the great physician. You are the King of Kings, and you are the Lord of Lords. Lord, I want to pray for our incredible doctors and our nurses. Lord, that they are truly the heroes of today. They are on the front line, and I just can't imagine that they're putting everything on the line, Lord, for people to help and serve and care for people. Lord, I've got a daughter who's a nurse. I pray for her protection. I thank you, God, for the job that she's doing. I want to pray for our police officers, our National Guard. I want to pray for the firefighters and the paramedics. Lord, we just want to lift them up to you, God, in terms of what they're seeing. Some of these nurses and these doctors, Lord, the family members, Lord, cannot see their loved ones, some of these people who are dying, and the only connection they have is through the medical staff and these nurses. I pray, Lord, that you would lift them up, Lord, because it's so concerning. It's so difficult to see the death that we're seeing. But, Lord, I understand that you are in control. And I just pray, Lord, that you would bless this great nation, that you would bless our president, you would bless the task force that we have. And God, that this would be a nation that could come together and God, just give you the thanks for blessing us in the past and for the great things that you're going to do in the future. It's in your holy and precious name. All right, everybody, I want to just kind of give you a little update on the economy. This week alone, we saw the unemployment rate go dramatically through the roof. Over 6 million applied for unemployment. Last week, we had about 3 million. I saw an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal. I've got it here. I've got to share this with you. It says, blue chips race back into a bull market. Last week, we had 3 incredible days that the market was just resurging. It was going straight up. And what happened is that 3 days ended 11 trading bear market. And so now what you're seeing from the Wall Street Journal is that we're now in a bull market. I got a question for everybody. Do you feel like when it comes to your 401k or your retirement account that you're in a bull market? The reality is that our accounts, most people are still down about 25%. Yes, we've seen some resurgence in the market. And I think for most people who are retired, people typically, 60 and older, this is truly a great time to maybe transition some of your riskier positions into safety. At Berry Financial Group, one thing I've done and I've taught Reid to do is that we believe you should have guardrails around your money. And I used to say this all the time, but I think it has such prevalence today. I want you to think about it. Some of you are tuning in and you're not from South Carolina, but in Charleston, South Carolina, they used to have the old Cooper River Bridge. And those of you that have driven over the old Cooper River Bridge, you were probably just like me. It was a 2-lane bridge. It was extremely steep. And every time I would drive over this bridge, I would always want to look over the guardrails to see if there was a big Navy ship or something coming in. And my palms were literally sweating. And so I really couldn't look over there. And the good news is I've never taken my car and bumped into the guardrails. I've never scratched my car. Well, years ago, they tore down the old Cooper River Bridge and they built this new state-of-the-art bridge. I think it's at least 6 lanes. It's incredibly wide, not as steep. And now you've got time to kind of leisurely go over and look over to the side and see what's going on out there and to see if there's a big ship coming. But here's the deal. On the old Cooper River Bridge, I never used the guardrails. And so I began thinking, wow, what we should do in this country is start building bridges, but let's just don't put any guardrails on them because nobody ever uses them. But think about it. If the bridge had no guardrails, here's the question. Would you drive your car over the bridge? Some of you probably would, but I guarantee if you did, wouldn't you drive a lot slower? Well, that's exactly what retirees are doing with their money. They're taking too much risk, so they're driving too fast over this bridge that has no guardrails. And the real implications of that is that if your car goes off the bridge, it's over for you. You're not gonna live out the retirement that you had envisioned going forward. So I think it's a perfect time to transition. Now, you're gonna have some people and you're gonna have some other advisors that disagree with that, and that's okay. And listen, what they're going to tell you is to hunker down, because we're supposed to buy low and sell high. You've lost a lot of money and you shouldn't get out of your positions. I think that's appropriate for some people and definitely for younger people. But, Wall Street talks a pretty good game, but they don't practice what they preach. Before this market went down and we've had about 25 losses, almost every economist knew that our indices were hitting all-time highs. And matter of fact, this bull run was the longest bull market we've ever seen, which was about 11 years. Well, why was it Wall Street telling you to take some of your positions that were really at risk and lock in those gains? So now what you've done is what you typically do in the past, because we tend to repeat things over and over again. So now you've lost a lot of money and all they can say is, well, you need to hang in there until it comes back. Well, here's the real truth. It's depending on how old you are. Some of you, honestly, will not live long enough to make it back. And if you do wait for it to come back, you probably have missed some of the best years of your retirement. So I've got another story I want to share with you, and I've used this a lot in my career. What it's really like, here's what you're being told. You're getting ready to cross a minefield. And it's all about, you know, there's not a whole lot of mines in this minefield, but what you're being told, they're going to help you navigate through this minefield, because as you progress and get to the other side, there's incredible opportunities for you. So here you go. You're going through, they're helping you navigate. You step on a mine. Okay, you just blew both of your arms off. And they're telling you, hey, it's okay. It's all right. We're still going to guide you. Hey, you need to keep working slowly. We're going to guide you, but we're going to get you to the other side because the opportunity is incredible. And you keep working a little bit further, and before you know it, you stepped on another minefield. But this time, you've blown off both of your legs. And see, you're not getting it back. And see, what I believe is you shouldn't be in the minefield. And so here's what I want you to do. Let Reid and I come in with the helicopters while you're still intact, because really what you've lost the last few years is mostly profit. We're going to bring in the reserves. We're going to bring in the helicopters. We're going to lift you out. And what we're going to do is we're going to secure what you got, and we're going to stop the bleeding is what we're going to do. Now, you can count on this with certainty. Until we defeat COVID-19, we're going to have incredible volatility. What drives the market is fear and greed, and we're seeing a lot of fear. And so until we get to the end of this, you're going to see extreme volatility, and so that is further going to create the fear. Now, what Reid and I want to talk about tonight is tax-free money in retirement, but there are a lot of serious issues that we still must think about or consider over the next decade in order to make great investment choices for the future. So think about it. Taxes, they will be higher. Listen, by 2026, the taxes are going to reset and automatically be higher, but they could be substantially higher. So taxes are going to be higher, and here's what else is going to happen. Benefits will be lower for most Americans in this future. And so if that's the case, it's going to require more out of our pockets in order to pay for goods and services. And so if it's costing us more and the value of the dollar doesn't have the purchasing power, then guess what's going to happen? It's going to have an impact on the companies that we're buying their goods and services. From the standpoint, it's going to have an impact on their stock. So I think we're not going to see the major implications financially in this country about how our markets are really going to respond. I will say I think the federal government's doing an incredible job to help a lot of people in time of need. So thank God. They're really looking at this as a war. The enemy is the disease, which is COVID-19, and they're throwing everything at it to help us. Now, regardless of all these challenges, understand something. Government will not be able to raise taxes enough to fix all the challenges we're facing. If government raises taxes too much, think about what that would do. It would absolutely destroy our economy and the rest of the world economy. You can't raise taxes to the point that people aren't willing to work and create. You know, one thing about this unemployment, a lot of people are getting these checks because they're unemployed. The scary thing is that the federal government's throwing on like a $600 subsidy, plus you're getting state unemployment. There are literally people who are making more money to stay home versus going to work. See, that's incentivizing people to not want to come back to work, and I understand it. The government had to roll out this money very fast because people need to pay their mortgages, they need to pay their rent, they need to put food on their table, and I salute what they're doing, okay? But the other issue too is that you can't reduce benefits too much in this country, because if you start reducing benefits, you're going to destroy the middle class, and they're already under much duress at this point in time. So before we go into tax-free money, think about these challenges, okay? If you look, the national debt is $23.5 trillion. That's a number I can't even comprehend. Our total budget in our federal government right now is about $4 trillion. The interest on the debt is hovering around $500 billion, and it's been estimated with the monies that we're spending right now in about 5 years the interest on the debt could be close to $1 trillion, which is a fourth of our budget right now. On top of that, okay, if you look at the relief package that Congress just passed that the president signed off on, which I really think is something they needed to do, that was over $2 trillion. Well, now you're hearing about possibly another relief package of over $2 trillion. And this is a package that will build the infrastructure of, in terms of our country, work on our roads and our bridges. I don't know when that's going to actually come forth or if that's going to pass, but that's what we're hearing out of Washington. The student loan debt, $1.7 trillion. The credit card debt, $1 trillion. We're bailing out the airlines, the cruise lines, small businesses. And there is a little bit of good news that I read in the paper today. Some people don't read the paper. I'm still old-fashioned about that, by the way.
I've been trying to get him on the iPad, but he still reads the paper.
Not happening. I love to touch the paper. But see, listen, President Trump is now basically has gotten, it looks like the Soviet Union and also Saudi Arabia. They've been having this literally a war going on in terms of producing oil. And so we got a glutton of oil going on, and it's absolutely killing our energy companies here. We've got some fracking companies right now that are on the verge of going bankrupt because there's so much oil that's out there. And then we've got most of us in this country, we're not even driving anywhere. And so it's driven the price of oil to around $22, $23 a barrel. But hopefully what we're going to see is they're going to pull back on some of their manufacturing of oil in terms of being out there in terms of consumption. Now, the Social Security and Medicare trustees, they issued a report, and they said that Social Security reserves will be depleted in 2035. This year, Social Security entered a negative cash flow in 2020. Medicare will be insolvent in 2026. And we currently have 79 million baby boomers over age 79 million baby boomers. And if you look at the Gen Xers, we have 66 million of those. So we're going to have 140 million people over age 65 in the next 27 years. Question: if we're struggling to take care of 62 million people, retirees who are retired right now, how do you think we're going to have enough money to care for 140 some million in the next 20 years? Where is the revenue going to come from? And see, this is why I think it's so important to focus on tax-free money. People say, well, we'll just tax more people. Well, keep in mind, 50% of people in this great country make less than $30,000. 2/3 of the people in this country make less than $50,000. And 50% of the people in this country pay no taxes. So my question again, where's the government going to get the money to deal with all these challenges? They're going to raise taxes. They're going to raise taxes, and the other thing they're going to do is they're going to monetize the debt. They're going to have to print more money. This is the only way that we can stay in the game to keep this going. And I'm going to tell you, if you keep printing money at the pace that we're printing it, normally what happens is inflation raises its head. And so as inflation's going up, the value of the dollar typically goes down. Well, what does that mean again? That means that the value of the dollar doesn't have the purchasing power. So as a consumer, for Reid and I and all of the viewers, you can't go out and buy as many consumer goods or services. So what does that do on the economy? It means that the company's revenue's going down and their stock price is going down. So what Reid and I are going to do now is we're really going to talk about, since taxes are going to be such a major issue, and I'm telling you, they are on sale. Too many people are talking about their whole deal is we're going to make you a lot of money. I don't think it's about making a lot of money. I think for a retiree, it's about not losing a lot of money, but being very tax efficient with what you got. So Reid, can you lead us into our presentation?
Of course, I would love to. You can tell Mr. Barry's been watching Netflix with that war story. I saw something, Amazon, Prime, Netflix, Hulu, all these companies are just getting bombarded by subscribers, and I'm personally one of them. So a little bit about the disclosures. Won't read this to you, but we are a financial firm. When you're talking investments and taxes, definitely got to add the disclosures, very important. And let's ask some more questions. Some more questions. Do you think tax rates will rise in the future? Well, no doubt about it. Based on everything we just read, the answer to that is no doubt about it. If so, wouldn't it make sense to pay taxes today at lower rates? And once you pay the taxes, what should you do with the money? Well, that's why I'm glad you're here tonight. Pop quiz. What was the highest tax bracket in our history? We got to look the year after World War II, the highest tax bracket in our history, 94%. Well, Ronald Reagan was somebody who would pay the 94% back when he was an actor. So when he was president during the 70s, what do you think the worst tax bracket was? 70%. As of January 1st, 2018, with the Tax Cuts and Job Acts, what's the highest tax bracket? 37%. So what will happen to January 1st, 2026 to the highest tax bracket? Mr. Barry said it was going to reset automatically, and it's true. It is going back to 39.6. Well, see, that's not too much to write home about. That's not even enough to get me scared. But it's the years from 2030 on that would make sense that the tax rates will get a lot more. Like Mr. Barry said, everybody's treating this as a war. They are treating the COVID-19 as a war, and it is. It is a war against the disease. It's a war on businesses. More importantly, it's a war on lives. And what happened after World War II? They raised taxes. So after wars, they typically do see a large increase in taxes. So why will they have to go up? Well, let's talk about it for a second. Mr. Barry mentioned some great things. We got Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare is going to be insolvent in 2026. I had a tough conversation today with the Medicare supplemental plans. The problem is those plans are going up. They're going to continue to go up because we've got a serious deficiency in Medicare and Medicaid. Social Security, we'll talk a little bit about that next. War, possibly. Debt. Unemployment. We're seeing the largest unemployment we've ever seen. You know what's amazing to me about the stock market is the day that they release over 3 million people filing for unemployment, the market went up over 1,000 points.
Well, that's a great point. And you know what it really says, and I want people to understand this, the market's based on fear and greed. It's not based on logic. So we're seeing all these people file for unemployment. Listen, I've seen numbers that we could see unemployment go to 30%. I hope and pray that's not. I do love what the federal government's doing for small businesses at this point in time, is they're providing money, loans, and grants to keep their people on the payroll. How smart is that? Because if you can help these businesses get through these lean and tough times, then people still have a business to go back to, and employees still have a place to work. What does that mean? The government's not taking care of you. So I salute what they're doing with this relief package that they just implemented.
We got the infrastructure we talked about, and then prescription drugs. That big deal. Won't get into too much detail until our Medicare webinar. So please bring that up or come to the webinar on Medicare. We'll talk a lot about that. And just remember, go to www.barryfg.com/schedule a meeting if you're interested in talking about more of this stuff specifically. Social Security and Medicare are the two things that will make debt go up faster than anything else. When did they first roll out Social Security? 1935. Social Security has been around since 1935. So what's that, 85 years? When it first started, how many workers were putting into the program for every one person drawing? If you get these answers right, write them down. If you get them right, we may give you a prize. Mr. Berry may give you a really cool gift. I don't know. We'll have to talk to him after this. 44. There were 44 people working for every one person drawing when it first came out. What was the earliest you could draw on Social Security? 65. Well, what was the life expectancy when it first came out? 62. They weren't even planning on you drawing Social Security when it first came out. Definitely want to get that across. And if you made it to 65, how long would you draw after that? 2 years. Statistically speaking, you were dead at 67. One, they didn't, when it first came out, they didn't even expect you to draw it. Two, when it did come out and you did make it to 65, you draw for 2 years, and then hopefully you go meet the amazing Jesus.
Hey, Reid, I want to make a comment about that too. Listen, when Social Security was designed, it was never designed to be your total retirement plan. Social Security was supposed to supplement the defined benefit plans, the pensions that most people don't have today. And now most people don't have the defined benefit plans or the pensions, but also it was supposed to supplement the 401ks, the TSPs, the IRAs. But for a lot of people, because we're seeing that Americans are not savers anymore, Social Security for a lot of people will be their sole retirement. But see, the problem with that, and I think the government's going to do everything they can to make Social Security solve it. They've been kicking this can down the road, but you still listen. Retirement is not just about quitting a job. Retirement is about doing some cool things in retirement. It's about, taking trips. It's about spending time with your grandchildren. It's about going to Disney World. It's probably the best time to do it, but it used to be about going on cruises. So listen, retirement has totally changed, and a lot of people, their retirement, if they're drawing just Social Security, what you're doing is you're staying home watching TV because there's no other monies to do anything else.
And when it comes to Social Security, what that really is what Mr. Berry said. It's a pension plan. It's a guaranteed paycheck for life that comes in every single month. Mr. Berry, why do you believe people love those guaranteed income checks in retirement?
Well, here's the cool thing about it is you can get a check and you can spend it all that month and you can waste the money, but guess what? Another check's coming. In my 33 years, I have never had a potential client or a client to come in to say, hey, Richard, we need to stop my Social Security check or we need to stop my pension. I've told Reid this over and over again over my whole career, that typically the happiest people that I have met in my career are people who have guaranteed checks coming in. That's Social Security and pensions. A lot of times, the most unhappy people are the people that have the most money. They got a ton of money. They don't have a mailbox paycheck anymore or a pension, but they've got most of their monies in the market. And so as soon as the market starts having all this volatility and they have losses, see, they're unsure if they're going to have enough money to sustain them to the very end. So we believe at Berry Financial Group that you need guaranteed income, that retirement is about guarantees. Retirement shouldn't be based on a hope, that you hope that your money in the market's going to work out for you. That's not how you go through retirement. That is about anxiety and stress. And at the end of the day, what Reid and I believe is that people truly want peace of mind when it comes to their money.
No doubt about it. So Social Security was very solvent when it first came out. And then what happened? Well, the silent generation, that was around World War II. And then all these soldiers came home. And what were they ready to do, Mr. Berry? They were ready to get in the bedroom.
Absolutely.
They were ready to get in the bedroom. And they just started having babies on babies on babies. And the baby boomer generation far surpassed anything we've ever seen, which was right after Social Security just really came out. Well, then the baby boomers have not had near the children that the Generation X has had, which is why so few people are funding Social Security. So Social Security and Medicare now, let's talk a little bit about it. How many less children did Generation X have than the baby boomer generation? 32 million. 32 million. How many people are working for every one person drawing Social Security now? 3. This was before the unemployment came out, by the way. In the next 10 years, assuming we get back to the jobs that everybody had, how many people will be working for every one person drawing? 2. There was 44 working for everyone when it first came out. In the next 10 years, there will be 2 people working for every one person.
I want to make a comment about that because that's an incredible number, Reid. So if you think that now all the government's going to do is just basically tax those 2 people working very hard, they're basically going to take all their money in taxation. What's the incentive for those people to work? See, these are the challenges that we're facing. And the interesting thing is no one's talking about the real challenges, but I'm telling you, these are the issues that we're facing. So, Reid's really going to see this. I think personally, I'm going to see a lot of this really come into play. And you've got to be prepared in terms of how you position your money in the future.
Exactly. And this is a lot of this stuff is negative doom and gloom, and we're not sharing that to be negative doom and gloom. We're sharing that to give you the opportunity to make changes to what you got going on, to put yourself and your family in a position for success, which is why we put the www.barryfg.com/schedule meeting to see some of these opportunities you can take advantage of. But if someone makes it to 62 and starts Social Security now, their life expectancy is 85. Was Social Security very solvent when it first came out? With everything I just read, do y'all believe Social Security was solvent when it first came out? Absolutely yes. Look at this. This is the Time magazine. This was on March 2nd, 2019. The Time magazine put this on here. This baby could live to be 142 years old. That is amazing. That may be little Caroline.
Maybe that may be me. I mean, that's going to be me living to 142, Reid.
Oh, man, I hope you do. I'll tell Mr. Berry all the time I need him to work another 30 years. So hopefully he will, no doubt about it. So the people born today with these medical enhancements have potential based on the Time magazine to live to 142. Well, when Social Security first started, the life expectancy was 62. David Walker is the former comptroller of the federal government, which basically what that means is he was the CPA of the federal government. He said Medicare's issue could be 5 times worse than Social Security. That's why these supplement prices, these advantage plans, Medicare Part B, the premium for Medicare Part B has increased every single year I've been doing this. That's 6 years, 6 straight years I've seen that increase. And the reason why is the former, AKA CPA of the federal government, he took one look at these numbers that we were facing and he said, quote, "We have promised way more than we can deliver." In 2008, he said these numbers work, or to make these numbers work as far as Social Security benefits and Medicare benefits, he said in 2008, to make them work, we'll have to double taxes immediately. This was 12 years ago and before a $2.5 trillion plus stimulus that we're seeing today. He said if you don't double taxes immediately, the national debt will grow $2 trillion a year until we have $53 trillion in debt. Well, what is the magic, or why is the $53 trillion in debt technically the magical number? Because once we have $53 trillion in debt, all the income, not 50%, 40%, all the income from taxes will only be able to fund the interest and nothing else. Not Social Security, not Medicare, not national defense, not infrastructure. If the debt gets to $53 trillion in debt, which it will if we don't double taxes, then only the taxes we pay will pay the interest. So the tax train is coming. because David Walker is predicting tax rates to go 50% or higher. And there's one 4-letter word that explains why tax rates must double. What do you think that word is, Mr. Berry?
Everything that you've been saying and I've been saying is why taxes are going to go up.
But there's one 4-letter word that explains why. Some people say debt.
I know the answer to this, Reid, because I know the PowerPoint here. So I'm not going to answer it.
Okay, well, here's the answer. Math. It is as simple as math is why they have to go up. To fix the problem, you must double taxes, reduce benefits, or some combination of the two. And most people do it. Think about what we do in America. Most people put their savings in pre-tax accounts, 401ks, 403bs, IRAs, TSPs, profit sharing plans, money purchase plans, cash balance, 457 plans, deferred comp. What they're doing is they're not paying taxes at historically low rates to when one day they could pay taxes at whatever rate that may be. And so what that really is a partnership. You've got yourself a partnership with the IRS, but they control the rules. So if you see a huge freight train coming at you, what would you do?
Get out of the way.
Get out of the way.
I want to make a comment on this too. You know, a lot of the viewers that are watching too, you were told so many years, put money in the retirement plan. That's good. It went into a pre-tax plan. And what you were hoping and what you thought would happen is you would be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. Question, how's that working for you? See, most of you, because the baby boomers are savers, you're actually paying more taxes now than anticipated. And you know, some people think this is what some people think that the answer to all this is. Well, let's just tax our corporations. They're heavy with money. Listen, corporations, the purpose of a business is to make money. And when you start taxing a corporation or a business too much, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to hoard their cash and they're going to start laying people off. So that is not the solution. I'm not saying that corporations shouldn't pay their fair share of taxes. I agree with that. But you've got to incentivize corporations to hire people, and that is exactly what the federal government's doing with this stimulus plan right now.
So let's keep on moving. So there's 3 tax buckets. No matter where you put your money, it's going to fall into 3 tax buckets. You got the taxable bucket. You got stocks, bonds, mutual funds, savings. What that really means and how you know you got monies in the taxable bucket is you get that beautiful 1099 saying, hey, you got some interest this year. We want our share too. The good thing about this is it's liquid. Typically, to have monies that you get a 1099 on, it's typically liquid, which is very important, which is why everybody needs some emergency funds. Can you potentially have too much in emergency funds? Could you have $200,000 in the bank earning a little bit of interest getting 1099? Well, Mr. Berry's taught me this, that you can have whatever you want in the bank. And there's no right or wrong answer. From a tax efficiency standpoint, it makes sense to keep that taxable bucket smaller from a tax standpoint, but that liquidity number should be whatever makes you feel comfortable.
Hey, Reid, emergency fund is exactly why you need one with the challenging times that we're facing right now. The textbook solution or the textbook number you should have in emergency money is anywhere, but I believe between 6 and 12 months of your monthly expenses. You know, I heard Dave Ramsey on a little early today. He says cash really is the position that people need to be in and have that emergency fund in order to make it through these challenging times.
Yep, so very important to have some positions there, 6 months of expenses. Then you got the tax deferred bucket. You don't pay taxes going in, so you get to defer the taxes going in. Well, that's what we just talked about, 401ks, IRAs, SEPs, 403bs. You get the tax deduction going in, but when it comes out, it's taxed as ordinary income. That's a big deal. It is taxed as ordinary income. So you don't get to, if you have stocks and mutual funds and bonds inside your tax deferred retirement plan, you still get taxed as ordinary income. So it makes sense if you're going to hold those risky positions, it makes sense to have it on a taxable account to take advantage of the capital gains treatment.
Especially when you're in retirement. That's the strategy that we use at Berry Financial Group. Yeah, I mean, if that's going to be taxed at ordinary income, you should be using your after-tax money in order to take on that market risk.
No doubt about it, because if you're taking the risk, you should at least get some tax benefits for doing so in the partnership with the IRS. Most deductions vanish in retirement. That's why people typically pay more taxes. You see, when you're working, you get to write off your mortgage interest. You get the biggest, you're contributing to a retirement account. You get to write off that. Most people have young children. You used to have an exemption for them. Well, in retirement, you don't get any of those things. Most people pay their homes off or have, and with the standard deductions gone up, most people don't get that really anyways, and you're no longer contributing. And then the third and final tax bucket that you have is the tax-free bucket. We call it the tax-free bucket. It could be tax advantage. And there's two options. It's Roth IRAs and then what we call an LIRP or life insurance retirement plan. That's it. This is your menu from a tax bucket. Contributions are post-tax. You pay taxes before you put the monies in. That is very important. If you are looking for tax-free accounts, you will pay taxes before you put the monies in these positions. Well, we just went through for 40 minutes why tax rates will go up, and we think you should pay taxes at lower rates if you've got to pay them. They're free. This is very important. To really identify as a tax-free income stream, it's got to be free from 3 taxes: federal tax, state tax, and capital gains tax. That is very important. See, if municipal bonds are tax-free, we didn't put them on there because a lot of times they're taxed by the state or the feds, depending on what kind of bond it is. The growth is tax deferred, and then you get the income out tax-free. Elimination of the stretch IRA. Mr. Berry, would you discuss a little bit how big this is for everybody?
This is really huge with the Secure Act that just passed the first of the year that the president signed off on. And what you could do before this Secure Act got passed, it was basically an estate planning tool. So you could have a grandfather who had $1 million IRA, and let's just say he passed away and left that to his granddaughter who was, say, 7 years old. Then the granddaughter could really just stretch the IRA, I mean, not pay any taxes until that child actually became 70.5 years of age. So that $1 million could literally be worth $15 or $20 million. Well, the stretch is gone. What the government decided to do is we're not going to let that happen. We're not going to let people perpetuate their wealth and continue to pass it down to children and grandchildren. So part of the Secure Act, what they did is that when you die with your IRA and you leave it to children, not a spouse can still stretch it. But if it goes to a child or to a grandchild, they have to now by law take all that money out within 10 years. They can spread it out over 10 years, Reid, or they can take it all out if they want to. But the elimination of the stretch is creating about $16 billion in revenue for the government.
That is a big deal. Most beneficiaries will have to spend them down within 10 years after death. That'll increase their taxable income at rates that could be more than double in the future. Your $1 million pre-tax account may only really be about $400,000 to your family. This will give the IRS another $16 billion in revenue over the next 10 years. So here's the real question. Do you want your family or your money to go to your family or the IRS? To talk about this, go to www.berryfg.com/schedule meeting for a one-on-one consultation. So let's talk about the two tax-free strategies. The first being the Roth IRAs. This was established by the Taxpayer Relief Act of 1997. We hear this question all the time. Well, why didn't I ever have a Roth before? Why wasn't my Roth IRA where I had monies before when I first started saving? Most people couldn't. Most people literally did not even have the option because it didn't even come about till 1998. And very few businesses, even today, offer the Roth portion inside your 401k. So it wasn't really disclosed to you, and unless you went out of your way, you really wouldn't probably have heard about it. There's two ways to fund it. Contributions with earned income, which is $6,000 if you're under the age of 50 for this year, or $7,000 over the age of 50, so you can contribute to the Roth with earned income. However, if your modified adjustment gross income is too high, you cannot contribute unless you do a backdoor Roth conversion. Here's how good that is. The government saying this is so good. One, we're going to limit how much money you can put in here. So you can't put a ton of money in here. And two, if you're making too much money, if you are showing too much income, you still can't contribute to it. Or a conversion. That's the majority of our clients that are interested in this would typically go the conversion route due to the fact most of them are retired. However, you must pay tax on conversion. That is very important to know. You will be paying taxes if you choose to go to the Roth IRA. You can pay the tax out of the conversion money or from other monies you have elsewhere. In a perfect world, you pay the taxes elsewhere, either reducing, if you've got a ton of monies in a taxable bucket, meaning the emergency fund position, if that is too high and you're interested in Roth conversions, it would make sense to really kill two birds with one stone. You're reducing your 1099 income and on not much interest anyways, maybe some risk accounts, plus you're repositioning your IRA for a Roth IRA in the future. However, there's a 5-year rule. This rule is very complicated. My father helped me out big time with that this week with the 5-year rule, but I won't spend too much time doing it. However, to get the tax-free growth, you do have to have that Roth open for 5 years. To get that growth out tax-free, you've got to have it open for 5 years. And another important thing, if you're under 59 and a half, then you have to have the account for 5 years, or if you're over, you must be 59 and a half and have the account for 5 years to access the growth, penalty, and tax-free. If you're under 59 and a half, the growth is taxable and penalized. And also, if you're under 59 and a half and you do a conversion, you have to pay that taxes from your after-tax monies, because if you pay it through the conversion, you get hit with the early 10% IRS penalty. So what's that really mean? If you got $100,000 that you want to convert under 59 and a half, and you tell them, hey, out of that 100 grand, take 20 of it and pay the taxes. I'm under 59 and a half, just take it out. They're going to say, hey, we'll take it out and we'll also give you that 10% penalty. An example of Roth conversions. We've got a little bit of time left. So we'll run through these examples quickly. Let's say you're 65 years old, married, filing jointly. You got 500 grand in pre-tax monies and you want to convert 50,000 a year annually, assuming you're in the 22% federal tax bracket with the conversion. This is what the chart would look like. This is assuming you got an IRA balance of 500 grand versus with the 22% federal and 5% state. Most people will be less than that. However, we know tax rates are going to go up. So even if you were to max out that particular bracket, here's what that would look like with 4% growth. We won't go too much into details with the monies. However, I want you to focus on the far right column, because in the far right column shows that if you don't do anything and the feds raise it to 50%, like David Walker, the former CPA of America, talked about, at the end of year one with the conversion, your after-tax balance to beneficiaries, instead of 500,000, they would net 379,600, almost 380,000 tax-free. That's the money they would get with the conversion. Well, if you don't do anything and they raise tax to 50%, now they're only getting 234. Fast forward 5 years. After all these conversions, let's say something happens to you in 5 years. Here's what or let's say you're alive in 5 years, and here's what your numbers would look like. The first column, your $500,000 pre-tax IRA would be worth $326,000 because you've been converting monies out of that account. However, you'd have over $200,000 in your Roth account, tax-free. You could take $100,000 out of your Roth account and not pay a penny in taxes. If your family inherits that, they get it all tax-free. So then after 5 years, the after-tax balance is $439,000 versus if they raise taxes to 50%, $273,000. That's over $170,000 more to your family and not the IRS.
You know what's kind of sad though, to be honest with you, because I've been doing this a long time. People can look at these numbers and says, wow, that's a no-brainer. But here's the fact for the viewers. Most of them won't do it, Reid. Because to do this, you got to take on pain, and you've got to look in the future based on recalls at a train barreling down the track. You've got to see what's really coming in the future. We know what's coming. So you're either you're gonna pay less pain by doing it now, and the pain won't be for you, by the way, but the pain's going to be for your children. And that may not be that big of an issue, but if you can be tax efficient, leave more money for your children and grandchildren instead of going to the government. And it's not that that's bad. It's just all of us hate the waste that we see. And that's why when you have a tax code, your obligation is not to overpay. Your obligation is to stay within the confines of the law and to keep your taxes as low as possible.
So true. So that is number one, Roth IRA. If we look at number two, now let's talk about life insurance. Because remember, there's two ways and two ways only to get tax-free money. The first, the Roth IRA. This is the life insurance. Been around since ancient Roman times, more than 2,000 years. Well, compared to the Roth IRA of 1997, that's a big deal. Most people think term insurance when they think life insurance. Most people think, hey, what's the least amount I can pay for the most amount of death benefit in the event I die? But the problem, it's not, I mean, it is a problem to the extent of wasting money, but less than 1% ever pays off. Why? Because people outlive the term. So we're going to focus on the tax-free benefits of permanent policies. Let's look at it as an accumulation standpoint. When you're looking at a tax-free haven for accumulation and you're using life insurance as that vehicle, it's the most money you could put in for the least amount of death benefit, because we want to maximize that amount that gets tax-free to you while you're alive.
You're doing the life insurance for the living benefit. You're not doing it for the death benefit. That's nice. That's because you're going to eventually use it, and that's going to pass on monies tax-free. But that's the focus here. It's for the living.
This correct. So now we're talking about the living benefit. Well, what happened is the TEFRA, DEFRA, and TAMRA laws from the IRS made the rule that you have to have a death benefit involved to get the tax-free benefits of the cash value. So this is so good. Think about the two things going on. The Roth IRA is so good that the government said, hey, we're not going to let you put more than $6,000 to $7,000 a year. Well, I mean, in the scheme of things, that's very small. What about the people that are making 70, 80, 150, $200 million? Well, what do they do with what do they do to get tax-free benefits? They use life insurance. That's the only option. However, the government said, hey, to get all these benefits, you do have to have a death benefit cost associated with it. So don't you think if the government made these laws that the tax benefits must be amazing? And we look at three of them: tax-deferred growth, tax-free access, leveraged tax-free death benefit. I personally just like saying the words tax-free. Ed Slott, the most famous CPA, said this, quote, "The tax exemption for life insurance is the single biggest benefit in the tax code." So what are we hearing about on this webinar tonight? Literally the tax exemption of the single biggest benefit in the tax code. Life insurance cash value benefits. This is Jim Harbaugh, one of the most famous college coaches, and cash value life insurance made him one of the highest paid college football coaches in the country. Mr. Berry, why do you think he was even excited to get this inside of his retirement plan?
Well, see, this is an amazing thing. And not only are they doing this for most coaches, this is a benefit that's being offered to Dabo Swinney for the Clemson Tigers. I will tell you that I'm actually doing some of this as a part of my retirement, my pension. What's literally going on here for Jim Harbaugh is that the Notre Dame is literally funding this life insurance policy of about $2 million per year as part of his package. And when he hits retirement, he's going to be able to pull out about $1 million tax-free. Now, a lot of people, the viewers, are thinking, well, I've really never heard of this. Well, this is typically done in corporate America. See, when you're providing a 401k or you're providing some type of retirement account, you cannot discriminate against your rank and file employees. But when you have your bigger executives in corporate America, this is how they discriminate legally. But see, you don't have to do it on this type of stage or this amount of money. You can still do it on a smaller scale to still create tax-free money. So this is really still one of the main jewels that are still out there. And I'm going to tell you, it's been shocking to me that the federal government has not closed this loophole down. I don't think they'll ever close it down because the death benefit still has a major emphasis on people. It keeps businesses going, it keeps families going, and it's the only way, Reid, that money walks in a big way in time of need.
Exactly. So let's keep on moving. That's from a retirement income supplement standpoint. However, just what Mr. Berry said, it comes in the life insurance death benefit, which is a benefit attached to it, comes in at the right time, and that's when death happens, which helps protect against the widow's tax. When a spouse dies, this tax status changes from married to single father. What that means is the spouse will lose a Social Security check. That is true, probably part of a pension. So here's the widow's tax. They'll be getting less income, but pay more taxation. So when you've got a beautiful lump sum of money from a life insurance policy that is tax-free, don't you think your spouse would like that? You know, we've never met a widow who wasn't glad her husband or wife had life insurance.
I've never seen it in my 33 years. As a matter of fact, some of my best clients are the people that I've been able to walk in with a check, and they weren't doing it from a living benefit. A lot of them were doing it from a death state, like you're saying, in order to keep the spouse in their world, to keep them whole. You know, that's our obligation, Reid. Listen, if you got a spouse and listen, and especially children, listen, that's your obligation. That's what you're supposed to do. We're supposed to take care of their people. Life insurance gives people time to live and accumulate, to build up the monies, so possibly maybe they don't need life insurance one day, Reid.
Exactly. So we're coming up on the hour, so let's keep moving. The life insurance death benefit comes in tax-free at the right time. If you've got life insurance, if you're interested in that from a widow's tax standpoint, remember berryfg.com/schedule meeting. So let's look at the Roth conversion versus life insurance conversion, wealth transfer. Now we're not talking about living benefits. We are talking about wealth transfer. You want the monies to go to your family and instead of the IRS. Now let's look at the same chart, but assume instead of converting to the Roth, you take that same $50,000 minus the taxes and purchase an LIRP. If you do that the first year, instead of $380,000 with the Roth conversion, your family would get $1.15 million tax-free. Let's look out 5 years from now. Instead of $439,000 after tax monies, $439,000, your beneficiaries would get over $1 million tax-free. It is a way to leverage the benefits tax-free at your death and really enhance what you got going on to your family.
And this is not based on what the stock market's going to do. This is based on, you know, exactly what an actuary has set in terms of what that death benefit will be, Reid.
Exactly. So these numbers are based on health. They are based on age. So when's the best time to get life insurance? Today. Straight up, because you're never going to be as young and as healthy as you are today. I've already got like 5 policies myself. I look at this up. I'm locking in my health. Once you get this locked in, they can't ever change it. If you get a policy locked in 6 months from now, you get diagnosed with terminal cancer, they cannot take that life insurance away from you. So IRA wealth transfer, the life insurance retirement plan wins every time. Funding it from your required minimum distribution is often a great strategy. We'll talk about that in a moment. Bill Gates just bought a $211 million life insurance policy. Why would he do that, Mr. Berry?
Well, I know people thinking, wow, doesn't he have enough money? Listen, he's got a tax problem. So think about in terms of Bill Gates' net worth. Some of you probably remember when the estate tax, you had an estate tax exemption of $600,000. And what that meant is that for the first $600,000 of your estate, it wasn't taxed, but anything above the $600,000 was typically taxed around 50%. So based on the old tax law, if you had $1 million and you died, and listen, most people didn't have $1 million. They had a business, they had maybe a retirement account in their home. But when a person would die and they were worth their net worth was worth $1 million, the IRS wanted about $200,000 in estate taxes within 9 months. Well, most people don't have that liquidity. And so then the family is forced to liquidate at a fire sale to come up with that money. I guarantee you, Bill Gates understands about perpetuating wealth. Well, he probably paid, I don't know, $70 to $80 million, has this thing sitting in a trust. So he's taken 70 or 80 million. He's bought $211 million to be delivered to his family tax free. It is amazing. That's why wealthy people continue to stay wealthy, and a lot of times their children and their grandchildren stay wealthy.
It's a beautiful strategy. So let's look at it. He bought that policy to pay estate taxes. So why don't you buy one to pay the IRA taxes and leave more money to your family and not the IRS?
And that's a good point too. I know we're running out of time, Reid. Listen, if you need your IRA to live off of, that's the number one priority. The people who are doing this is they have pensions and Social Security. A lot of my clients don't have any mortgages anymore, but they want to do something for the next. They want to leave a legacy. They want to pass money on to the next generation. This is the concept for you.
So what we got on this page is we've got a 72-year-old single gal, 72-year-old. She gets about $28,000 from her required minimum distribution. Well, this lady does not need it. So for those of you that do need it, spend it. It's your money.
Enjoy it.
Enjoy it. That's our first and foremost thing. But for those of you that are like, I don't need it. I've been blessed. I want to give this money to my children, my grandchildren. I want to help my great-grandchildren with college. Well, if you took that $28,000 and you just put it in a savings account or an investment that earned 4% that was taxable, and you died the first year, your family gets $28,000. But if you took that $28,000 and you put it in an LIRP life insurance plan and you die that first year, they don't get $28,000. No, they get $654,000 tax-free. There's no place on the planet that you can put $28,000 in one time, if the Lord calls you home, generate over $650,000 tax-free to your family. So every year she gets that distribution. After 10 years, she's put in $280,000. That's a lot of money. But if she dies, her family doesn't get $280,000. They get $707,000 tax-free. This lady just perpetuated her wealth in a beautiful tax-free strategy when tax rates may increase 50%. So question, do you want your life savings and hard-earned money staying in your family or going to the IRS? Because if you want to go into your family, remember berryfg.com/schedule meeting. Me and Mr. Berry, we want our monies to go to our wives and our families. I've got a beautiful wife. That is Mr. Berry's daughter, and a beautiful golden doodle named Chance. If you walk past our house and he's outside, he will bark at you, but it's just to say hello, I promise. And then Mr. and Miss Berry. And Mr. Berry, why do you think you'd rather have your money go to your wife and family than the IRS?
Well, it's just a simple question. I mean, I've spent 33 years, just like a lot of my clients that are listening to this webinar, and you build it and you want it to listen, you want to invest back in your children and your grandchildren. And I tell people you do that, number one, if you agree with the way your children are living, and you want to do that, but you want to do it if they're taking on the values that you set before them. But who in the heck wants the IRS to get anything? I don't want to overpay my taxes. And I pay enough, like most of my viewers here, but I want my family to get what I've worked so hard for, Reid.
Join us next week at 6 p.m. Thursday, April 9th at 6 p.m., same time, to discuss how the COVID-19 event has reminded us all of the importance of a long-term care plan. Next week, we're talking about long-term care, so we'll send out some things to sign up for that. Referral opportunity. When we do dinner seminars, we love for our clients to come to the dinners, enjoy a nice meal on us, introduce them to their friends, just a nice way to hear us share our story and for them to eat a nice meal. However, the restaurants are closed. So we're extending the referral opportunity for these webinars. So forward the webinar link to your friends and family. Make sure they put your name down when they sign up. That's very important. We want to know when somebody refers somebody to me, I love that person that referred them because it means a lot to me, and we want to reward you for that by either giving you extra tickets at our client appreciation event, which will increase the chances of winning prizes, iPads, Kindles, manicures, golf outings. As of now, we've got the client appreciation event at the Carolina Opry. We'll have over 1,400 people come out in November. Lord willing, all is well by November. Also, for a referral opportunity, you will get a gift card, and you got potential for winning season tickets to the Carolina Opry. Berry Financial's given retirees and pre-retirees peace of mind through safety since 1987. Mr. Berry's been doing this over 30 years. I absolutely love getting to come to work every day. We do devotions on days where we've got the time, and we pray for you. Listen, we love every single person that has joined here. It is our passion to help you with your money and your life savings. It's our purpose to love you the way that Jesus Christ did. And so www.berryfg.com/schedule meeting. We'd love a chance to get to know you better and to show you some of these strategies.
God bless everybody. Y'all be safe, and we'll talk to you next week.
Y'all have a wonderful night.